Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. We're coming in loud and clear from Downey. This is Mark Schwans
And
and
Kathy Rodriguez.
yeah, there you go, and Kathy Rodriguez. And we're glad that you're here to join us. I think we're going to get just a rolling start because I know there's a few more that are registered and probably on their way right now. In fact, I need to admit 2 more that are in the waiting room. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I know we have a good group here. We have a checking in form. I'm going to put the link again in the chat. And this is for a checking in form. Let's see, I have it linked for everyone who can edit. If you can find your first name
It already started.
and check your box there by your name. Let me find the chat. There it is. This is the link to that checking in form if you'd like to check in. And there's a column there for comments. So you can write anything you want there. Maybe you have a question or maybe there's a comment. What are you looking forward to in terms of sheets today? Are you a teacher? Are you an office staff? Are you administrator? Maybe let us know where you're at. That would be great. Great to hear from everybody. And we'll get rolling. This meeting is being recorded, just so you know. Great. Looks like some of you are popping in there to the chat. Thank you so much. Well, just a introduction for a few minutes here. I wanted to again say hi. This is Mark Schwans. I'm a coordinator here at ITO in Downey, and you're joined also with Kathy Rodriguez, my colleague.
Hello, everyone. I see all the Rodriguezes came to this training.
Yeah, they're all here.
There are a
At
few.
least a good percentage of them.
Welcome aboard. We're glad to have you.
Great. And this workshop kind of came out of a discussion that Kathy and I had just this past year, where we were finding there was a good interest in teachers that we were talking to have some insights into Google Sheets and how it could be used for productivity, but especially by students. So we have basically that dual focus. And today specifically, we're going to focus on how Google Sheets has this new feature called Timeline Creator. Timeline Creator. Have you ever tried it? Anybody here tried the Timeline Creator? Okay. Well, hopefully today will be a chance for you to give it a try. And first, I'm going to get into just a quick overview of a couple features that are in Docs and Sheets that can help with managing projects. Now, remember, we're looking at both focuses, classroom and productivity. So we'll keep that in mind as we look at those features, and then we'll get right into the majority of our time where we're trying out this new feature with Timeline Creator.
Oh, look, honey, come here.
Are there any questions or comments before we begin? Okay, great. And if you have any technical issues or having, like for example, having trouble hearing, or if I forgot to put my slides up there so you can see them, whatever it might be, just open your mic and let us know. We appreciate that. And we also have we are monitoring the chat. If you have a question, you can pop it in there as well. Now, I want to also say this, we're going to be putting a number of different links in the chat for these examples and templates. You're, of course, free to work alongside, maybe in another window or another tab, but you're welcome to watch along too. All of the links will be provided in the slides, and so you can use those to review or to have a record of those links for those examples. So let's check our checking in. How'd we do? Well, it looks like we have an average of 7,500. So what happened there? Oh, I see. Linnell, you said 3 to 4, and it interpreted that as a date. So I'm going to put 3.5. And let's see. Okay, good. That means our average for those who checked in is 2.91 ... out of 5. Good. Anybody want to make a comment about your rating? I see a number of 2s there.
Actually, no, I'm a 4. I'm pretty good.
How about you, Corey? Okay. Well, good. We're all ready to go. Are you okay?
Yes, sorry about that.
Okay.
I had myself on mute.
No problem.
I'm kind of self-taught, but I managed to figure out some formulas and stuff to help kind of with the productivity level of it.
Good.
I'd like to think of myself highly with it.
Good. Now, what's your current role?
I'm actually working at a district office with the student services office.
Okay, great.
So numbers with permits and everything is a big thing for us.
Oh,
Keeping track of all the information.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Okay, good. Well, listen, as we're getting into this, I wanted to also say that I found out about Timeline Creator from a fellow Google trainer by the name of Eric Kurtz. Eric Kurtz is prolific in producing very helpful videos, and he's got a blog. It's just fantastic. And so I want to give him the credit for bringing this to my attention, and this feature, Timeline Creator, that's come out. And then for other educators that have been sharing examples where I've gotten some of the ideas from here today. I'm going to mute that microphone. Well, first of all, like I said, we're going to take a look at sheets and docs. I wanted to share with you just a look at the agenda so it's really clear what we're going to be up to. So first, the Google Docs and Sheets, and then Timeline Creator, and then I want to share some resources with you. So for Docs and Sheets, you're familiar with these 3 apps in the Google Drive app itself, Sheets and Docs. So let's go ahead, and if I click on my app launcher, it brings up my apps. Now you can rearrange these. I can put Sheets right there in the middle where I'm going to need it. And of course, Drive is already open, but I can put it there. First sample we're going to look at is one that I created for managing a project. So let me share this. Kathy, are you going to copy these, or should I go ahead and do it?
No, it's okay. Just go ahead, and I'm gonna.
Okay, no problem. I got it. Give me a second here.
Do we need if we need to put them in the chat, then I
got him. I got him here. No problem. Okay, this is the first one. When you click on the link, it'll ask you to make a copy. Let me show you what it will look like. Let me just click on it myself. Here we go. There we go. I'm going to redo my sharing. We got someone in the waiting room. Okay. There we go. Okay, so it'll ask you to make a copy, and if you do, it'll make a copy in your drive. Hello. Welcome. I'm going to put you on mute there. Okay. Good. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Our first example, you'll notice here that I have a tab at the bottom for this directions sheet. Now, there's only a couple directions on this one. It's just an example. On the next tab, it says build. I've put some directions here. And this over here on the right side is the example that I've completed. This is just a little project tracker that I built to show the feature here of the dropdown. So you can use these dropdowns now in Sheets so that you can always have the data exactly as you want it. For example, let's add another row here for Ivan. And one of my favorite students of all time was Ivan. I'll just put him in there. And then you see I don't have the drop down, so I can just copy it from the cell above. I just copy and paste. But in this case, let me go ahead and bring another one in. Insert. And there it is down here, drop down. So it's going to have this drop down, but this one is not configured the same as the ones I have above it. So let me go ahead. Just take this one. Yeah, let's see here. Right there. Okay. So let's say this project tracker, I have these students in the group, and I could either have them pick their role, or I could just, pick their roles myself. And then if that student is ready to go with their project, there's the checkbox. Very simple. And if I want to reconfigure those drop downs, I can do that over here in the data validation. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's do this one. Click on the little pencil icon, and that should open it up for you. Any questions? Okay. Now let's take a look at this sample project tracker that I built in Word. So you'll get a link like this. Put that in the chat. Okay. This is a little project tracker in Word. I'll show you how this one sets up. My idea would be that students would be able to use these themselves, maybe create their own, depending on what you have them doing or what they're working on. So here, let's see if it's gonna load. There it goes. Okay. And here I just have a little image of what it looks like. So I'm just going to scroll on down, and you see I have reviewer, status, notes. This is the standard one that we'll practice inserting in just a second. And then this one down here is one with the columns adjusted or edit. I edited them to fit the project. So let's do this. Let's go insert, building blocks. And this is the one here, project tracker. I click project tracker, and it just puts that building block right into the document. In this case, I can just click into it and edit those titles. Status is the same. Oh, I see. I just changed the first one to group. And then this has the standard categories that were created in this building block. And you can see that this is created for business. They have these standard categories, right, for project management. And I think another good reason to use these, I think, is to introduce students to the language of the professions that they might be interested in being a part of. So again, I can edit these here. It's a little different than the Excel one. You can change the title, the template, and then when you do, let's just add a new option and see what it does. Now it's going to ask to change all these other ones that are in the document. I'm just going to apply to all, and now it's even changed this one up here. And there's one other comment before we move along, because we're going to get to the timeline creator, is if you type the @ it'll bring up the @ menu, I call it. The @ menu has these smart chips. It has the building blocks right there. So it's a lot quicker. Just type the @ Let's do the product roadmap on this one. There we go. So that's a building block. Any comments or questions? Oh, I see, Kathy. I saw your. It's okay if I call you Kat, because that's what your name says.
Absolutely, of course.
It says we are moving on to the project tracker. Oh, I see. Good, thanks.
I was just trying to help people because you're
Yeah.
going kind of fast and they need to.
Okay. Good.
What's
Thank you. Yeah, I knew. And I said I was going to be going fast. Okay, let's get into this timeline creator. I'm going to close my my doc. I'm going to close the project management piece. Do we have anybody in the room here who does some projects with their students? Maybe it's not officially, problem-based learning, but I'm sure some of you do projects with your students. Okay. Okay, well, Alicia, were you going to say something?
No, sorry.
Okay.
No,
No problem.
I don't work with kids.
All right, no problem.
Thank you.
All right, no problem. Well, here is a timeline. I'm going to first share an example of a timeline that Kathy and I created for a course that we were writing, or that we wrote. And I'm going to put this in the chat. So you have a version, you have a copy of it. Let me open that. Okay. And this first one, if you want to look at it with me, make a copy. There we go. Okay, so you'll see here on the Excel sheet, there are very specific column titles. Let's just go through them. You have start date, end date, card title, card detail, the color column, and the group column. If those headings are in place, just like that, and then there's data in those columns, you can use the timeline creator. You see on this example, I've already done the timeline creator, and it's over here on this tab. And there's the timeline. That's what timeline creator does. It makes a visual representation of the data that you have on the sheet. Now, there are probably hundreds of different graphical timeline makers or creators that are out there on the market. And they have, many of them have really cool features, like you can put themes for the time period. There's just so many different features. But the advantage, I think, for the Sheets timeline creator, for me as a former teacher, is it gets students using spreadsheets. It gets them experience to learn that spreadsheets are not just for numbers, but for doing things, sometimes really cool things. You'll see on the timeline, I have some different view options here. I can use this multi-year. I can go to days. If it's days, then I'm going to have to scroll all the way over to see the data. So on this timeline, it's probably not best. Let's look at quarters. That's not too bad. You can change the scale, which makes the writing really small. So if this is your first time seeing timeline creator in Sheets, thumbs up, thumbs down, no opinion yet. Everybody's so quiet today. Also, you can click on settings. You notice that opens up this little panel on the right. Oh, I see some thumbs up. That's good. I'm encouraged. So you can change the assignment. You see that says start date? Well, that's that first column. And I can tell it, I don't know why it would, but I could tell it to use the end date for the start date. That's going to mess it up. Yeah, I'm not sure. I want to do that. Let's keep that there. What I can do is, just make some reassignments there in the settings. All right. That is the course. Whoops. Let's go back. Let's go back to the basic timeline tab for just a second. how do I get this color column set? Well, here's what I did. Let me just take this one and I'm going to click on the paint bucket and reset. Now there's nothing in the color column. When I click on timeline, now they're all the same, no color. So if I go back in the color column, I right click and I could go to the color picker there. I'll just click on the paint bucket. And what I do is I just start with the one color, like the light color, depending on the mood of my data. And then I just go down the row of the palette. So that would be green. Just do it like that. There's a lot of ways that you could do it, but just to give it some variety. Then if I go back to the timeline, I can see how it looks. All right. Close the X to close that settings panel. And let's close that. That fine timeline that we made. Pat myself on the back. All right. I have another copy of a spreadsheet with a history. Kathy had mentioned in the chat a history timeline. So let's take a look at that. Isn't that what you normally think of with timelines, right? Oh, there it is. Oops. This is to everyone. Oh, this one is artificial intelligence. It's history in the computer science subject area. So this is the timeline. Let me open it up. So I want to tell you something about the timeline creator. It really is only going to work for data in periods of 5 years or less. And ideally, if you saw on the one that I had, my first example, that was about a year. And that's really the limitation of the time period. So you wouldn't use Timeline Creator in Sheets to do, something that lasted 100 years. But I thought, what about making a timeline, or what if I had students make a timeline of the most recent discoveries or releases in generative AI? So on this one, if you're working along with me, I've already entered some data. I have here ChatGPT on 11/1/2022, and you notice here GPT-4 came out, I said, on March 1st. So I'm going to put an end date here as 2/28/23. Now these don't all have end dates, and the end date column is not required. You don't have to put anything in there. But I'll show you what it looks like when you do. Something that's kind of cool is you can put a hyperlink in the card detail column. This card detail column is not required. It's optional. And you notice right now I don't have anything in the group. I'll show you that just a second. Let's go ahead and create the timeline. So I'm going to go to Insert, Timeline. And I'm going to just double check the range. Right now, it's automatically picking A1, that's right here, to F8. Yes, that's what I want. So I'm just going to click OK. And there's my timeline. Ta-da! I like it. Well, that bold yellow for ChatGPT, that's pretty cool. And you can see that because of the end date, it goes all the way across, and then right down on the lower part there's GPT-4.
Mark, I have a great question.
Okay. Yes.
Any ideas as to why the limit is 5 years? Is it because the feature is new? As a former history teacher, this is a cool feature that couldn't be used for that purpose.
Right. I haven't asked Google, but my assumption is that this timeline creator was envisioned as a way to help manage products, and product development periods are really relatively short. Planning, implementation, testing, beta, and then production, and then feedback and evaluation. But I think it might just be simply that you would have to scroll so far the way they have it designed. That wouldn't be practical. But I have to admit, I was kind of disappointed to find out that there was that limitation. But there's a lot of other tools that you can use to do the timelines. If this is just one of them. Corey, I see a hand raised. I see that hand.
Yes. I just have a quick question. For the format for the headers, do they need to stay the same as such as start date, end date, card title, or can they be moved? Oh, they do. Okay. Perfect.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
I asked that same question, and everybody I heard from was like, yeah, it's pretty much got to be the same. I mean, you can test it and change it and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, I'm just gonna vamp on a couple of the things, just as far as general knowledge. You can change these tabs. Like if you don't want the notes tab, let's say you gave it to your students, and then you could tell them, well, you can delete that tab when you're done. Just right click on the tab and delete. It's gone. You could also hide a tab. So let's say you just wanted to present the timeline. So you right click, and then you should be able to hide it. Why isn't it letting me hide it? That was fancy. Oh, it's grayed out. So I take that back. Maybe I can't hide that. You can delete the timeline and just redo it. But it automatically updates when you change the data on the sheet. So there's a lot of other things you can do with that. Okay, let's just add one more date. I'm just going to make one up, okay? Let's see. Let's say it released on 4/1/23, and let's say the app was ended like within a week. It's like that one that Microsoft had a while back. They had an AI, and it lasted like 3 days. They spent like $1 billion on it. Somebody was having a bad day that day. Let's say it ended on 4/4/23. Mess up. I'm going to call it mess up. And the detail, there's no detail. And the color, you only have these colors to choose from. Let's see. You can do some custom colors. Let's use this one here. Okay. Go to timeline. And there's mess up. It's right down there. If you click on these items, this is something to interactivity that is pretty cool. Oh, I see. You changed some headers. That's Linnell. Still worked. Okay. If I click on it, let's do Cosmos. You see over here in the right, that's just the detail that's in it. So you could have a pretty good chunk of narrative if you wanted your students to do some writing. This would be a fun way to do it. Let's try Flame. One of them has a hyperlink. Which one is it? Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. It's ChatGPT. I put the hyperlink in the details, so it's right there in the right side. So you could really easily use this for like to lead a discussion. And let's say you did a little history timeline for the events in a novel, and then those links could go to your slide that you're telling about it. It'd be kind of fun. Okay, so that's that. This mess up doesn't really have any color, but any detail, but I can change the color right here too. Make that a bright. There we go. All right, enough of ChatGPT, huh? Let's take a look at another way. Let's go to one that you can experiment with. This is a history timeline. Make a copy for the chat. And I also have a doc that goes with this with some history facts. I didn't assume that anyone here was going to be an expert on the American Civil War. maybe you are, and I'd love to talk to you because it's an interesting time period, isn't it? But I thought about the Civil War because it's a relatively short period of time, right? Okay, so that's this. Let's open that up here. Give you a second to open that. And it has a little instruction tab. And this is, let's copy this. Oh, not letting me copy. Here we go. Thanks for your patience. This is, I'm just going to write info on here. I asked ChatGPT to help me with the Civil War dates. I have to admit, I couldn't resist. I wanted to know. I wanted to know. So here's your assignment, if you're willing, is enter another date in column A. And if you want to just make something up, that's fine too, right? We're not going to be grading our history here. And if it's a multi-day event, add an ending date, add a card title, add details. Of course, remember that's optional, and a color. And then you click on the timeline, check it out. Let's see what we have so far. So right now I have Lincoln elected, February 4th. I have Fort Sumter, 1st U.S. Volunteers. And this is already in the multi-year. So if we go much farther, bless you, we're going to have to we're going to have to scroll over. But right now, the scroll bar is not available. Oh, I think we can all edit this together. Okay. I think I shared this as a collaborative. I see everybody's in here. Okay, that's fine. We'll work on this together. So does anybody want to add some dates to our timeline? I see someone in there. I'm gonna cheat and look at the history document. So I don't have all the dates memorized. Okay, so let's see. I thought this might be a fun way to have assessment of students that they really went through the material and didn't just, copy it from ChatGPT like I did. Let's see. How about the Battle of Antietam? That was a bad one. I remember hearing about that. 22,000 casualties. Oh boy. Antietam. Let's go there. And I'm just going to copy the data back down here so I know I can see it there. And this is, okay, I'm going to copy and I'm going to do my own cell here. Let's go 9, 17, 18, 62. And I'm just going to put an ending date because I think it was a 3 or 4 day battle. 9, 20, 19, 18, 22. Battle of Antietam. And I'm going to take this one out. There we go. And I think Battle of Antietam definitely should be read. Now I know we have some partial data in here, but let's just click on timeline and see what we got. Okay, there it is. There's the Battle of Antietam. See, what I did is I built into here some of that interactivity. You see for first Manassas, I put a link here to a photo. Click on that, or to a website. So that would be, to me, I immediately thought, wow, perfect for even elementary students, where they could put a link of a selected site. They're curating a site and they're using critical thinking to think, okay, what would best represent that battle? Put that in the link there. I mean, you could have a little detail if you wanted to. So one of the things I told you I was going to mention, and that is this, what's with this F column? It says group column. What does that mean? Does anybody have a guesstimate? What's the group column have to do with? Well, in the group column, you can have another category, like before, during, and after. Or I could say early war. Early war. Let's see, 1861. Maine War. I don't know what to call it, but we'll call it that for now. Maine War. Maine War. And okay, later. Oh, thank you for filling in some data. I appreciate it. So now that I have those, titles in the group column, let's take a look at the timeline. That didn't apply them. Okay, I'm gonna delete the timeline. Yes, I do, and I'm gonna recreate it and see what it does. Insert timeline, and okay. Oh, you know what? I needed to check here. That's okay. We have some blank. That red error, don't worry about it. That's just some blank cells. Use the date start. Oh, I see. It is. I'm going to start over. It didn't get the right set of data. So let's. Sorry. Mea culpa. We're going to start over. Delete that sheet. And let's try that again. Insert timeline. And let's see, timeline data. I want to go from A1. That's what I need to do. A1 to F10. There we go. And the group column, there it is. I had to turn that on in the settings. You see those lines? Early war, main war, later war. Oh yeah, I did it. Oh yeah. The card detail column, I need to add that. Looks like it lost it. So I'm telling it there. Oh wow, this is nice. I just occurs to me, there's another advantage to using the timeline feature in Sheets, and that's the collaboration factor. I'm glad it worked out this way that we could work on it together. I can imagine the students having some good interaction, as they're working on maybe learning about this feature and how they're going to, make the colors, the links, and I'll take this date, you take that date, let's add our information, and then we'll turn it in together. So, any other comments or ways you might see this being used? We doing okay on time? Kathy, am I still going too fast?
No, you're doing good on time.
Good, good, good. Thank you. Okay. Well, I already mentioned PBL, or project-based learning, which I love, and I always was a project-based learning teacher. I think that's why I loved my years in the early grades too, was just the busyness of making all the time. Okay, well, this is a planning timeline template that I created. So I would encourage you to make a copy. And by the way, good job on the history timeline. That was satisfying. It was nice to see that get done. Let me copy this link here. That one. Here it is. Okay, so now since we're making a copy, we'll all be working on our own individual timeline. And you can see here I have some notes. I said the sheet was created to be used in a PBL unit. Now, of course, you can use it however you want to. That's fine with me. The group column has drop downs. And so what I'm doing here is I'm adding an adaptation that I thought might be useful. For example, you see I've added a a start date for this first event. And let's say that September 1st, right away in the beginning of the year, we're going to start this inquiry. And we're going to start looking at, okay, what problems are there? And this is going to happen over a period of 2 weeks. And what are we going to do? We're going to look in our community and find a problem that needs to be solved. And this in the stage of empathy or empathize. Just use the little chooser. And of course, these first ones are going to be empathize. But the cool thing is sometimes when you're in the innovation cycle, sometimes you come back to empathize in the middle and you recalibrate, what you're doing. I'm going to just put that, assuming that there'll be some empathy in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to add another event here. So, Kathy, can you help me think of something that would be in the define stage? I've already done some empathy. We've done some early data gathering. We found a problem in our community. Let's say the problem is students are not coming to school on time. So maybe we're going to figure out some ways to incentivize the promptness, or maybe it's traffic.
Pick one. Traffic.
Okay, let's do traffic. I think I like that. Let's start this on.
They can't come to school because they can't cross the street. Too many cars.
Yeah, we need a crossing guard. It's not safe.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So then we're going to do some definition during the first 2 weeks of October. Be the 14th. And what should I call that? Problem defined.
Okay.
A proposed solution or solutions. Okay.
That's ideate though. When you're starting to figure out what you think how you might solve the problem, that's ideate. That's
okay.
What that.
I changed it. So then maybe we're going to do some ideation before we fully define it. Let's call this brainstorming. Okay, good. Okay, let's just do a couple more. I think that I'm going to put one that's going to fall later in the end of the project, and I think it's a good thing, to use a tool like this with students because, there's a skill to learning to think linearly. Can't even say it. Linearly. Well, you know what I mean. And for some of us, it really bothers us to jump around. I like jazz, so I like to jump around, but I get it. Sometimes it's really hard if things are not working chronologically. But I know at the end, in let's say in December, we're going to have some presentations, and we're going to present our work so far. Presentations, live and online. And that's going to be the test phase, or what? Yeah, let's put that in the test phase. Okay. Okay, so what do I do to create the timeline? Somebody help me out here. Anybody? And no, Kathy, you can't answer because you know. How do I create the timeline? Insert timeline.
Insert timeline.
Alicia, is that what you're going to say?
Yes. Insert timeline, and then let's say highlight from A1 through D5 so that you get the whole timeline there.
Okay, you bring up a really good point, Alicia, and you can do your highlight before to tell it exactly where to go. And I'm going to move this out of the way because it's not letting me go down to, I really want it to go to F. Well, let's go all the way down because I'm going to eventually fill it out. I'm going to hold down the shift key and just go up there like that. All right, there we go. Now if I try it, let's see what if it automatically will get that timeline. Yeah, there it goes, A1 to F12. So you can also just learn to look for the cell, and you know it starts in A1. So A1 colon and then the last one. That's the range, done. And so far, I automatically knew this is going to need to be years. Yeah, best. And again, you can just ignore those errors, because it's just the blank cells. I can see that color needs to be adjusted. What I do, if I change the color on here, no. Oh, did you notice something? It worked. I was tinkering with this. You see the colors are not coming from the color column.
They're coming from the group column.
Yes, I did that on purpose. So if you look over here and I open up settings, you see the card color is group.
Okay, that's cool.
So that way you can use the drop-down color for the item. And then the item on the timeline is that color that corresponds with the chart, with the PBL chart. This one. I couldn't get the colors exactly, but you know what I mean. I was so well intentioned. Let's just double check our settings. Group card detail. Oh, I need to tell it. Detail. There we go. And we don't have any groups here. We could try it and see. Okay. There. That's not bad. It's going to use that same group column for those extra categories. Questions? Was anybody able to try something that we didn't cover, or you found something that you have a question about?
How about if we review the things that we covered, so you
Yes.
can make sure they're in your mind, so you can see how we used each of these things. Would that be helpful?
It's a great idea, and I just pasted a link. I think it's just a final sample.
Okay.
That is one we can try that with. Okay, so let's walk through in the time we have.
We have about 13 minutes left.
Yeah, so we got about 5 minutes before I wrap up my presentation part in our interaction. Then we'll do our closing activities. This is a timeline that I created for a research project that I did recently. And I thought it might be a good template for someone who's doing a more long-term project. Be something you're doing for work. And so let's just go over some of the things we covered. First of all, we covered that these headers are required for this to work. So you could just start a new spreadsheet, and then you could type in A1, start date, so on. Or you could just have yourself a template, and take out the data, remove the timeline, and start over. That's another way to do it. Okay, which of the columns are required? Start date is required, right? So I'll make that gray. And what's the other required column?
Card tile.
Yeah, you're right. C. Thank you, Patricia. So that goes here. Okay. The other ones are optional. Of course, depends on what you're trying to do. And what does that group column do? Remember, that's that category, right? So let's do beginning. I'm just going to go beginning, and that was through October. And then this was middle. And then end. Ah! What did I do? Nope. There we go. End. Okay. Now let's give this timeline a try. Timeline it out. Good. And I have those beginning, middle, end groups. Picked it up that time. Settings. What are some of the features of the panel there on the right side? Like the one that I need to check here is the detail. I need to tell it that. There we go. So you're like, I imagine that the reason that this is feature is available so that if you see your timeline, it's just too much detail, too much words, you can turn that one off. It's not so cluttered. Just say no option, like that. And then what are some of the features up here on the top? You can adjust your view. You can zoom in and zoom out. Well, that's better. Nice.
That's better.
Yeah, lots better, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, look at that. I'm going to close that panel and then, right. So if I was using this for a presentation, I wanted to do it live, it'd be good to go. What we didn't talk about is sharing, but there's also the collaborative sharing of a document where the receiver doesn't have the option to edit. So I'm going to share this with anyone with the link can view. And then you just have them go to the timeline tab and they'll be able to see timeline. If you didn't want them to change any of the data, you can lock that data down. You're not going to hide it. Okay, wonderful. Well, I appreciate your participation today. I apologize if this was like a little bit too much, but I'm enthusiastic about some of these features that are really making some of these things possible. And I think that it shows the responsiveness of, the development team. And we think of Google and Microsoft as such big corporations, but they really do take people's ideas and input and say, hey, what if you could do this? And so if you ever have an idea like that, you go to the help menu in any one of the apps and you can make suggestions. Let's see, where is it in here? Nope. Well, there's a forum. Here it is, send feedback. You can just click on the send feedback and say, you know what? The timeline creator is awesome, but I need it to do like 100 years worth of data. I want a calendar that will really do an awesome job. I mean, the timeline. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I wanted to make sure I share the slide deck so you have those resources. So I shall do that now, and I should go to the final slide because we also want to ask you to take just a minute and do our evaluation. We really look at this data to help us as we're planning, and I know Kathy and I would appreciate it if there was a comment like, hey, let's do this some more. Let's go deeper. That's right.
Or you might have another idea for something else with spreadsheets or in this up altogether. Whatever it is, we want to know about it. So if we can help you become more productive and to utilize the tools that you have at your fingertips.
Here's the evaluation link. It just takes a minute. You can enter your name or you can be anonymous. It's up to you. We also mentioned that Kathy and I are just in the middle of our first online self-paced Google Certified Educator course. And we've had a first cohort. They're currently working. One of our first testers has passed the certification exam. We're very proud of that. And we'll be offering that again this next quarter. We don't have the exact dates yet, but we'd love to hear if you're interested and have you join us for that. What you say, Kathy? It's probably about 10 hours of work, depending on your level.
Really up to you.
Yeah.
I would say we have all of the materials to help you do a really thorough review. Mm-hmm. But if you're somebody who uses Google tools and you feel comfortable and you consider yourself knowledgeable, mm-hmm. then to go through the material might take you up to 10 hours, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
You can go through the material as quickly as you need to. It's totally up to you. You can skip over things that you don't feel like that you feel that you know very well. And then you'll be ready to take the test.
Yeah. Going to stop recording.